Greetings, I'm the Bulgarian Crocodile. Today I'm gonna do a list reaction video. I used to do these more often, but I haven't done this in a while, I think. But this particular list is the Letterboxd list, top 250 international films. So I did a reaction to the kind of normal Letterboxd 250 like a few years ago that has both international films and American and English language films, but this only has international films. So this should be very interesting. And here you see the criteria that all the films need to have at least 2500 ratings. So that obviously excludes some great films because some great films only might have like 200 ratings or thousands ratings or whatever. And then the other criteria is non-English language live action films. And the list excludes miniseries, documentary, animated, and short films. Yeah. So here is the country representation. I'm not gonna go through all of these, but yeah, Japan at deserved number one. And then we have France and Italy. So this is kind of a top three that you would expect, I think. Then I think Sweden is here mostly due to Ingmar Bergman. And then yeah, China, Germany, Iran, Russia. So kind of countries that you would expect here on the top. I think maybe one or maybe couple are um, like surprises here is that India is only at six because of course India has produced so many films, so you would think that there would be a bit more than six here, but maybe one of the reasons is that some of the great Indian films like aren't very accessible in like for example here in Europe or in North America. And yeah, that might be one reason for India being quite low here. And then we have like Czechia here at two, so that's pretty weird considering how great like Czech New Wave is. So you would think that there would be maybe between like 5 to 10 films here at least from that era of Czech cinema. But I guess not. And Poland is a bit weird here because they obviously Zulawski is a Polish director, Kieslowski, Wojciech Haas. So there have been quite a few great directors from Poland. Yeah, and no Finnish films. So I'm very offended that my country wasn't included here. Well, I'm not offended actually, but I would have put like one or two Kaurismäki films in a list like this. But of course, this is based on the average rating. So, and Aki Kaurismäki films can be a bit kind of, I guess, love or hate. Yeah. Then we have the decade representation here. So the 60s is the kind of most common decade here. And I would also agree that 60s is the best decade for international cinema. Yeah. Most popular years 57, 62, and 2000. Yeah. And yeah, then there are some other lists here. But anyway, let's get into the list before we waste too much time on those criteria and stuff. But anyway, so here is the top 10. And this is like, I think, partly what you would expect. So it has films like Seven Samurai, Come and See. And then, of course, City of God is very popular as it is like an international film that even people who don't watch films with subtitles usually, they still watch City of God. And Parasite was such a huge cultural phenomenon. But I'm so glad that it has so much Kobayashi here. And I think Harakiri is a very deserved number one, as I think it's one of the greatest films of all time. And of course, Come and See is such a masterpiece, so it has to be very high up there. And Seven Samurai is just always so high up in these lists. And I think again, High and Low is of course another big Kurosawa classic, so it's understandable to have it here too, and so as well as Ikiru. And Yi Yi, I think it's one of the like best films of the last few decades, so glad to see it here as well. Yeah, of course, this is different than what my top 10 would be, although The Human Condition and Harakiri would be on my top 10 too. And I love many of these other films here too. Like, I don't necessarily get why City of God is so beloved. I think it's a good movie and I need to rewatch it, but to me, it's not like one of the absolute greatest international films of all time. But I know many people love it, so good for them. So then top 20. So lots of films here that you would also expect. It's like again more Kurosawa with Ran. Then La Haine is a film that many people absolutely love, and this is another film that I don't love as much, even though I like it. But there's something about the style that I kind of found a bit obnoxious, even though again I like the movie. And by the way, these ratings here that you see, like when I put the mouse on top of the poster, these aren't my ratings, but they are the ratings from the person who made the list. Yeah. And so far I have seen all of these films that are here. Yeah. The Cute, the Bad and the Ugly, like it's one of my absolute favorite like mainstream films. It's one of the best of its kind. Yeah, and more Edward Yang with A Brighter Summer Day. These are of course the two Edward Yang films that you always hear about. Letterboxd is a good thriller. Like again, I sometimes like or oftentimes I don't like thrillers as much as many other people do, but this is one like French thriller that I think is absolutely amazing. And you can see how much it has influenced like prison films that came after it. Oh, his Autumn Sonata is actually the highest rated Bergman here, so that's pretty uh, interesting. I also think it's one of his best films, like top three out of his filmography, but usually it's not the highest rated one, so it's kind of cool to see it here. A Cinema Paradiso is a great movie, but again, I don't think it's quite this great. But of course, it's one of the kind of more popular international films, even among non-cinephiles. So yeah. Then we have Teshigahara's Woman in the Dunes, which is one of the great 60s Japanese films. So I'm glad that it's so high. And Tokyo Story, I wish it was even higher than this, but at least it's on the top 20. And then we have our first Tarkovsky, I think, Andrei Rublev. Yeah. So of course, many of these you would also see in like critics lists, but this is also a bit different in many ways than in your average critics list. Yeah. Let's go to the next 10. So we have another part of the human condition. So I guess the second part is the lowest rated here. And I think all the parts are masterpieces, so it doesn't really matter like how you rank them, I guess. And I kind of think of them as one piece of art rather than like three separate parts. Yeah. The Passion of Joan of Arc. Is this our first silent film? I think, yeah. Yeah. But didn't they have in the criteria that? Oh, wait, they didn't have silent films in the criteria, so yeah. But yeah, I think this is a very deserving, like, number one silent film. Yeah, this one I don't get why this is so high. Portrait of a Lady on Fire. I've of course said many times on my channel that I don't get the hype for this film, even though of course it has beautiful cinematography, like good performances, but I didn't really like the characters, and to me it just felt so cold and distant that yeah, I didn't love the movie, even though on paper it's the type of film that I should love. The cranes are flying is great to see here, even though I think Letter Never Sent by the same director is better. Then we have Villeneuve's On D, which I think might be Villeneuve's best film, but I'm not the biggest fan of Villeneuve, so I wouldn't have it very high on a list like this. But yeah, it is good. And Mishima Life in Four Chapters, I of course absolutely love. I guess the person who made this list doesn't like it as it is rated like 1.5 stars, but each their own. And Fanny and Alexander is the second highest rated like Ingmar film, and this isn't one of my favorites from him because to me it's too kind of Hollywoodized. Like, I prefer his bit more kind of complicated philosophical films rather than this, even though this is good too. Then we have Kiarostami's Close Up, great to see it here. And Memories of Murder, so we have already like two Bong Joon-ho films here, and I think you could make an argument that this is actually better than Parasite, but yeah, I wouldn't have it quite this high, but yeah, it's a really great movie, and I think it should be on this list. The Battle of Algiers, you could make an argument that it should be even higher, but yeah, great to see it here. Yeah, the next 10, so we have Stalker from Tarkovsky. Of course, it should be here. You could say it should be even higher. Then The Ascent is one of the great war films, and I'm glad that it feels like many more people have discovered it. in the past few years. So it has kind of become a bit more of a like big classic now. Then we have Shansho, the Bailiff, which definitely should be here. It's our first Kenshi Mizoguchi. Of course, usually it's this one or Ugetsu that is the first or most highly rated Mizoguchi, and I think Ugetsu probably will be here as well. The Handmaiden is really good from what I remember. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I wouldn't have it this high. Then we have another Ingmar Bergman film. We have Persona, and I would have this as the highest ranked from him, but I'm glad that it's still here very high up there as the third highest Bergman film. Yeah. Then we have more Kalatozov with I Am Cuba, very high up there. It's glad to see it so high. And this is a good example of how like a propaganda film can also be such a great work of art. I think, yeah. In the Mood for Love, I would kind of expect that this would have been in the top 10 or at least quite a bit higher than this, but it's still obviously very high. Yeah. Once Upon a Time in the West is a no-brainer. Of course, it should be here. Knights of Cabiria. Is this our first Fellini? I think it is. So interesting to see. This as the highest rated one. Of course, critics and directors usually put 8.5 as the highest one, and then they might have La Dolce Vita and La Strada and films like that higher than this. But of course, this is usually one of the highest rated Fellinis. Then we have Old Boy. Yeah, I haven't seen this in such a long time, so I don't really have a current opinion on it. But I used to kind of not be that into it, but I might be more into it now. Then a great 10 films here as well for the most part. So we have Koreeda's Nobody Knows, could be his best film. Absolutely love it. Love Exposure is of course a very popular film these days, and for a good reason. It's such a fun ride. Eternity and a Day, great Angelopoulos film, and we also have here at the 50th place another Angelopoulos film, Landscape in the Mist, which is not one of my absolute favorites from him, although I need to rewatch it. Yeah, Satan Tango could have been even higher. Scenes from a Marriage, yeah, one of his best films, love it. Redbeard is such a great Kurosawa film, and I think it's a bit like more layered and deeper than most of his films, so that's one of the reasons I also really love it. Life is Beautiful, I think it isn't as good as like your average film fan says, but it's still a good movie. The Separation was kind of disappointing to me. I was very much looking forward to it, but then when I watched it, I couldn't kind of fully get into it, but it's still a good movie. Then Where is the Friend's House is one of the best Kiarostami films, again part of the Coker trilogy. So far this list has been very solid overall. So now we have a couple of films that I actually haven't seen yet. So I haven't seen War and Peace because I want to read the book first. And then this one I've been meaning to watch, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Farewell, My Concubine. But other than that, I think all of these films are quite deserving. So Army of Shadows is one of the greatest films of all time, one of the best war films, absolutely amazing. The Man Escaped is probably the best prison film ever made, in my opinion. An Elephant Sitting Still, it's so dark and depressing, and of course the backstory of how like the director killed himself, I think, after making this film. So that's very sad. And that topic always comes up when you talk about this film, especially because the film is again so depressing. Yeah. Or Death, great Trier film, might be my favorite from him. Abu Sansar is the third part of the Abu trilogy. And of course, you would expect that all the Abu trilogy films are here. Yeah. Three Colors Red. Yeah, Kieslowski is maybe his best film or one of his best at least. The Seventh Seal, like I always say, this is not one of my favorites from Berryman, but I still like it a lot. And of course, it should be in a list like this. And The Wages of Fear is a very solid suspense film, even though it's not necessarily kind of my aesthetic or my cup of tea. But I still can say that objectively, it's a great movie. Yeah. Yeah, another 10 films. Yeah, as I've seen most of these, but there are a couple more that I haven't seen. So we have Wild Strawberries, of course, one of Ingmar's most famous films. There have been so many Barrymore films here. but for a good reason. Then Underground, this is actually a pretty amazing film. Kind of has an interesting tone as it is very kind of absurdist and kind of funny in some ways, but also like extremely dark in other ways. So it has a very interesting tone, but it still works really well. And this is a like a film from last year that I haven't seen yet. It's called I'm Still Here. Yeah, but I've heard many good things about this, so I'm gonna watch it at some point. Then we have How to Make Millions Before Grandma Dies, another film from last year, which I haven't seen, so but I want to see it. And we'll see if these films kind of will be on this list for the kind of long haul, or whether they are just here now that they are just that now that they just came out and they are popular. Yeah, Late Spring by Ozu. I think it should be even higher, but glad to see it in the top 100. Yeah, then we have Tarkovsky's Mirror, our third Tarkovsky after Rublev and Stalker. And I know that this is many people's favorites. It's not one of my absolute favorites from him, but it's a great movie. Still Walking from Korea. Yeah, love it. Absolutely should be here. And this is one of the best political films of all time. It's Costa Gavras' film Z. Would highly recommend this to everybody. It's great to see it so high up there. I wouldn't expect it to be so high up there in a list like this, but it's a nice surprise that it is here. And then probably the most joyous and one of the most beautiful musicals of all time, The Young Girls of Rochefort. Yeah, by Jacques Demy, my second favorite probably from Jacques Demy, or is it because I love Lola and Donkey Skin as well? But Cherbourg is clearly my favorite. Taste of Cherry is probably my favorite Kiarostami film, but I really need to rewatch his filmography. But yeah, definitely should be here. Yeah, then I think yeah, there's one out of the next 10 that I haven't seen, which is actually this Xavier Dolan film, Mommy, which is weird that I haven't seen it because I like quite a few Xavier Dolan films, and this is probably his most famous film, but for some reason I haven't gotten around to it. But we have Korea's Monster. This was, of course, very popular when it came out in 2023, and I really liked it. And it's quite different to other Korean films in how it kind of plays with the narrative. Of course, he works with children here, and there's the family element there as well. So some things are very much of his usual style, but yeah, the structure of the film uh, makes it kind of stand out in his filmography. Yeah, Funeral Parade of Roses. I'm really glad that it is here. Yeah, great movie, and it has become quite popular in recent years, so that's great to see. Raise the Red Lantern is my favorite from Shang Yimou. I think it's a really good movie. I think somehow or sometimes his films can be quite style over substance, but I think this just kind of stands out as his best film. Although I need to see many more. The 400 Blows is of course a no-brainer. The best film from Truffaut that I have seen. Central Station, I think it's a good movie, but it's a very kind of Hollywoodized film. It's like very sentimental and stuff, but it's kind of a very much of a kind of populist film that many people will love. So yeah, it's understandable in that way to see it here. Tampopo, great to see it here. Such a fun Japanese film. Butter Panchali, like I said, probably all the Abu Trilogy films will be here, and for a good reason. Wings of Desire, really need to rewatch this because I actually didn't like this when I watched it, but it has been so many years since I watched it, so I might like it more now. Then Bellatar's Werkmeister Harmonies, I think this is my favorite Bellatar film. I know many people go with Satan Tango, but I like this one more. But it certainly should be here, like in the top 100, I think. And I've seen 9 out of these next 10. So I haven't seen the last one, The Celebration. I've been meaning to watch it, but I haven't seen it yet. So we have Fritz Lang's M. Of course, it should be here. It's such a influential film for the kind of serial killer and thriller genres. The Fifth Seal by Sultan Fabri. It's an absolute masterpiece. It's great to see it in the top 100 here because not that many people talk about this one. A Special Day is an absolutely incredible Italian film from Ettore Scola, one of the absolute best of the Italian cinema, and that's saying a lot because they have such a rich and great cinematic tradition. But glad to see it here. Then we have Rocco and his brothers, another masterpiece of an Italian film, so glad to see it here. Yojimbo, more Kurosawa. Yeah, I would expect to see it in the top 100. Das Boot, haven't seen it in a long time, but I remember liking it a lot. Isn't there like two or three different versions of this film? So I wonder like what is the most popular version of for people to watch? I think I watched the longer version. Yeah. Shoplifters is a really good Koreda film. I think he has few films that are better, like the couple that we have seen here. But I mean, Monster I think is on the same level as this, but I like Nobody Knows and Still Walking more. Bicycle Thieves I think should be even higher. It stands the test of time so well. It's still such a heartbreaking and beautiful neo-realist film. The Sacrifice, yeah, another great Tarkovsky film, but of course, all of Tarkovsky's films probably should be here because they are all so good. Yeah. Then this one I haven't seen yet, The Best of Youth, and don't know that much about it, but let me know if you have seen it and what you think of it. Then we have 8.5. Again, in directors list, this tends to be way higher, but usually when you ask like cinephiles who aren't directors themselves, they sometimes don't like it quite as much as the directors. But glad to see it here. Perfect Days. Yeah, this is one of the great recent international films. Absolutely love this one. The Weeping Meadow, I think one of Angelopoulos's best films. So glad to see it here. Chunking Express, I have only seen once and I really struggled with it. But I need to rewatch it and I have a feeling I will like it more now. Then we have La Notte from Antonioni. I think this could even be his best film. Definitely one of my favorites from him. Glad to see it here. The Hunt, starring Mads Mikkelsen. So this is a really good movie. I haven't seen it in a long time. I wouldn't put it this high, but I like the film a lot. Yeah. The Lives of Others is also one of those like very popular international films that even more casual film watchers watch. And it's a film that I liked but didn't love. Yeah, this is the Peter Watkins film, La Commune. And this one I haven't seen, but I'm very interested about it, so I will watch it at some point. And we actually have another Peter Watkins film, Edward Munch, which I think is a masterpiece, so glad to see it here. Then the next page, yeah. So more Tarkovsky here with Nostalgia, great to see it here. It's often the kind of one of the unsung masterpieces of Tarkovsky. La Dolce Vita, one of Fellini's best, so glad to see it here. Throne of Blood, one of Kurosawa's best, so glad to see it here. Children of Paradise is a really good movie, and I remember that oftentimes back in the day, like critics often put this as maybe the greatest film of all time. I'm not sure whether it's the greatest film of all time, but I like it a lot. Then we have Swing Girls, such a fun Japanese movie. I wouldn't put it quite this high, but it's a really fun movie. The Cremator, a great movie. Need to rewatch that one. Samurai Rebellion, so more Kobayashi here, very deservedly so. We have Sean Dillman, so here it's 108 and not number one. I think many people would like this position a bit more than the number one, but I think it's a really good movie. Although again, I don't necessarily think it's the greatest film of all time, but I think it's really good. And yeah, it should be on a list like this, I think. And there's Usala. This might actually be my favorite from Kurosawa, so glad to see it here. And this is a film that I'm absolutely dying to see. It's called Devils on the Doorstep. It's a Chinese movie. And I've been thinking that for our podcast, I might like start also like recommending films that I also haven't seen before. And I was thinking that this would be one that we could both watch, me and Altes, for the first time and then discuss it. Because it sounds like a film that would be a great discussion. Yeah. So I mentioned Uketsu earlier, so it's great that it is here. Then we have Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Cure, also great to see it here. Then we have another Kiarostami film, Life and Nothing More, one of my favorites from him. So yeah, all of these three are very understandable films. I just rewatched Cure recently. There are still a couple Kurosawa films that I like more than this one, but these definitely improved for me on a rewatch. Then we have Rififi, and I'm not much into heist films, but this is of course one of the big classic heist films, and it's a really good one. So I understand why it is here. And Metropolis, of course, should be on a greatest list. Then we have two Japanese masterworks. We have Shinji Aoyama's Eureka, definitely should be here. And then we have Hideaki Anno's Ritual, again, rated 1 star by this person who made this list. So yeah, it's to their own, but I absolutely love Ritual. Yeah. Winterlight, one of the parts of the Fate trilogy from Barryman. I think this is the second part, and it's a really good movie. And actually, yeah, my favorite out of the three. Then we have Umberto D from Vittorio De Sica. We already had Bicycle Thieves, and yeah, this is pretty much as good as Bicycle Thieves, an absolute masterpiece. Then we have Still Life from 1974. So this one I haven't seen yet. I didn't like the YouTube channel. Michael Bartlett just mentioned this on one of his videos, like the video where he talked about the best discoveries of the past few months. I think he mentioned this Still Life. Of course, there are many films called Still Life, like he said on his video, but I'm pretty sure this was the one that he was talking about. So I got very curious about it when I heard him talk about it. By the way, I would highly recommend Michael's channel. It's one of my favorites on YouTube. So yeah, he's a very knowledgeable guy on cinema. Yeah, then we have another and the final part of the Apu trilogy. I mean, this is the second film, but the other two were already here. So now we have all the three films on the list undeservedly. So The New Land, it's a great Jan Truel film. Absolutely love it. Napoleon might be the greatest silent film of all time, so definitely should be here. Then we have Tarkovsky's Solaris, another masterpiece from him, and the first one I ever watched from him should be here. I think Ivan's Childhood is the only Tarkovsky we don't have here yet, because we even had The Sacrifice, we had Nostalgia. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the only one that's not here yet. 4 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days from Christian Mungiu. Yeah, really good movie. I'm not sure I would have it on top 250, but it's a really good movie. The Samurai from Melville, one of his best films. Such a cool movie with the great Alain Delon as the main role. Yeah, love it. The Face of Another is an absolute masterpiece from Teshikahara, adapting the Kobo Abe novel that I need to read. We all loved each other so much. So this one I haven't seen yet, but it's on my list to watch, so I'm very much looking forward to watching it. Then we have Il Sorpasso, to me, one of the best Italian films of all time, so I'm glad to see it here. The Big City is a big blind spot of mine. It's a saturated Rai film, one of his most famous films, so I need to watch that so badly. 10 more films. An Autumn Afternoon, one of Ozu's masterpieces. Glad to have it here. Kwaidan. So this list seems to have all the big Kobayashi films, which is great to see. This is a stunning film, aesthetically. Very interesting movie. Then we have Hamaguchi's Happy Hour. I think we didn't have Drive My Car yet, so I hope that that's here as well. But great to see Happy Hour. Haneke's Amour. Yeah, this is probably one of my favorites from Haneke. It's a very solid movie. Then we have Rashomon from Kurosawa. So much Kurosawa here. Probably Ingmar Bergman or Akira Kurosawa. Like those two are probably the most popular directors on this list. So this one I haven't seen, Rio Zona Norte, and I don't really know much about it. So let me know if you know anything about it. A Moment of Innocence, a Magmalpa film, and other masterpiece. Love it. Happy Together, my favorite Wong Kar-wai film. So glad to see it here. The Lovers on the Bridge, I haven't seen yet. Then Cries and Whispers is like one of the top three Barryman films for me. Then more great films here. So we have Lee Chang-dong's Poetry. I think this is the first and possibly the only Lee Chang-dong film here. Yeah, it's one of his best, I would say. The White Ribbon is a famous Haneke film that I haven't seen yet. I've been meaning to watch it for such a long time, but haven't gotten around to it. Yearning by Mikio Naruse. Such a great movie, such a devastating but beautiful movie. Yeah, glad to see it here for a few dollars more. This is that one film out of the Dollar Trilogy that I really need to watch again. Yeah, the other two I've seen many times, but this one I think I have only seen once. Then we have Matsumoto's Demons. I've of course said in many videos that you can watch this on YouTube, and definitely do because it's a great Japanese film. Tokyo Twilight is one of Ozu's best films, and it really stands out in his filmography as it is darker, and it in some ways very much reminds me of like an Antonioni film. The Secret in Their Eyes is a really famous film that I haven't seen yet, so I need to correct that at some point. The Turin Horrors I need to rewatch, but when I watched this when I was a lot younger, I didn't like it. Playtime, like I'm not the biggest Jacques Tati fan, but this I think is his best film, one of the ones that I have seen. And of course, it's always on this list, so I understand why it is here. The Man Who Sleeps is a very interesting movie. I like it a lot. Yeah, Vatu Mama Tambien. Like this is the one Alfonso Cuarón film that I like a lot because I don't usually connect to his films that much, but this is just the one that I like a lot. So yeah, Macario. I've been meaning to watch this one, but I haven't seen it. And this one I also want to see, Embrace of the Serpent, but I haven't seen it yet. Grand Illusion is of course a masterpiece and should be here. Shang Yimou's To Live is one film from him that I haven't seen. Then Kurosawa's Dreams. I wouldn't expect this in like top 250, but it's great to see it here. It's a beautiful movie. Le Cercle Rouge, one of Melville's biggest classics. So yeah, I would expect to see it here. It's a good movie. Yeah. The Shop on Main Street is a very powerful film. Los Olvidados. Is this our first Buñuel? Might actually be like that's bit weird that we haven't had any other Buñuel unless I'm mistaken. But this is actually one of my favorites too, so it's kind of great to see it. It's the number one if it is the number one. Then we have more Kurosawa Kagemusha, really good movie. So I know this is very popular movie, but I haven't seen it yet. It's RRR. Yeah, so I want to watch that at some point. Yeah, great to see Pastoral to Die in the Country here. It's such a masterpiece. Drive My Car from Hamaguchi, my favorite film of the current decade so far. So great to see it here. Spring, Summer, Fall, Winter, and Spring. Such a beautiful film from Kim Ki-duk. Yeah, so glad to see it here. It's probably the only film from the director that is here. Uh, yeah, Ozu's Ohio, Good Morning. One of his big classic films, one of his funniest films. So glad to see it here. Yeah, Shame from Ingmar Bergman. Yeah, I think one of his best films. Such a dark movie, but so great. This one I really want to see, Time of the Gypsies, but I haven't seen it yet. I think it's from the same director as Underground that we had here already. I liked Underground a lot, so I think I'm probably gonna like this one a lot too. The Given Word I haven't seen. To be honest, this doesn't even ring a bell, at least just from hearing the title, but maybe I have heard of it. Yeah. Au revoir, les enfants. So this is a very famous Louis Malle film that I haven't seen yet for some reason, but I need to watch it. Early Summer from Ozu is absolutely amazing. Part of the Noriko trilogy. Yeah, these are great choices as well. Although Big Sote I haven't watched yet, but I've been recommended. I think one of my viewers recommended it to me, and I've also wanted to watch it, like even without the recommendation for quite a while. But I know many people love this film. Hanabi, Kitano's masterpiece. So glad to see it here. The Emigrants. We already had the New Land. I love these two films a lot. Leo from 5 to 7. It's my favorite Agnieszka Varda film, one of the best of the French New Wave. Ivan's childhood. So now I think we have all Tarkovsky's like feature-length films, and of course this list doesn't have short films. We have Nuri Bilge Ceylan's Winter Sleep. I watched this quite recently for the first time, and I loved it. So glad to have it here. Marketa Lazarova, I think, is one of the absolute greatest films of all time. So I think it could be even higher, but I'm glad to see it here. La Belle Noiseuse from Jacques Rivette. Yeah, one of my favorites from Rivette, and yeah, I think a list like this should have several Rivettes, but I guess that's too much to ask. Yeah. Then we have Priya Cuervos, a really good movie. I like this one quite a lot. Then Fallen Angels, I think, is one of Wong Kar-wai's best films. Yeah, this one is absolutely amazing. Nostos the Return. It's so beautiful. It doesn't have much of a kind of traditional story to it, but it's just visually just so beautiful to watch. Then we have Trier's Day of Wrath. Yeah, one of his better films. Love it. The Life of Oharu, one of Misoguchi's masterpieces, so definitely should be here. Diabolique, I haven't seen this in such a long time, but I remember liking it quite a lot, even though it's not one of my personal favorites. Ali, Fear is the Soul, it's absolute masterpiece, love it. There hasn't been any other Fassbinders here, but I wonder if there are any more. Amelie is also one of those like very popular films, international films that even people who don't watch international films generally watch this one. And I think it's a good movie, but yeah, not one of my favorites. Day for Night, I think it's one of Truffaut's best films, maybe my second favorite after 400 Blows. Through the Olive Trees is the weakest one out of the Coker trilogy to me, but still a masterpiece. All About Lily Chow Chow is a great movie from Shunji Iwai, although I like some of his other films more, but this is his most famous film. La Strada, one of Fellini's best, although not one of my personal favorites currently, although I think that might change after a rewatch. Then 60 films more to go. Manila in the Close of Light. Great to see it here. It's such a beautiful masterpiece from the Philippines. This one I liked quite a lot as well. Comrades, almost a love story. I think I even again this was one that I discovered through Letterboxd, through one of these lists, I think so. Yeah, it's a really good movie. The Exterminating Angel, one of Buñuel's best. It's actually my number one Buñuel film currently, so yeah, glad to see it here. Investigation of a Citizen Above Suspicion, really good movie. Yeah, Capernaum I haven't seen. Hiroshima Mon Amour might be the best film of the French New Wave, so I'm glad to see it here. It's so great. And this is one of the best films out of all the kind of French New Wave directors as well. So The Green Ray from Eric Romer, absolutely love it. All About My Mother from Pedro Almodovar. Yeah, Almodovar isn't one of my favorite filmmakers, although only have seen like four films from him, and he has a very big filmography, so I need to see more, and I also need to rewatch the ones that I have already seen. So I think I might end up liking him more as time passes on, especially because many of the things in his style and the subject matter should be something that I like more than I do, but we'll see. But this is definitely one of his most famous films and maybe my favorite one of the ones that I have seen. Prophet I haven't seen yet. The Spirit of the Beehive is a masterpiece from Victor Erice. Then we have Bong Joon-ho's Mother, which I think is such a great movie from him, even though, again, I don't remember that much about it, but I still remember the experience being great. Yeah. Throw away your book, Rally in the Streets from Terayama. Glad to see it here. It's such a masterpiece from the Japanese New Wave period. Ulysses Gaze might be my favorite Angelopoulos film. It's hard to say. But yeah, it's such a masterpiece. And it's starring Harvey Keitel, and you wouldn't expect him to fit Angelopoulos' style, but somehow he fits perfectly. Rome Obesity, one of the great Italian neorealist masterpieces. Then we have Three Colors Blue, my second favorite out of the Three Colors films after Red. Amores Perros, Inaritu film. I like this one more than I thought I would, but I still don't really get the Inaritu hype. Like Father, Like Son, yeah, one of my absolute favorites from Korea. Such a beautiful humanist film. The Naked Island from Kaneto Shindo. So beautiful. Yeah, not much happens in it, but it's just somehow so beautiful. Yeah, Pan's Labyrinth, one of the very popular uh, international films, and I like this one a lot. I'm not the biggest fan of Guillermo del Toro in general, but this one I like a lot. And Cueros, I haven't seen that one. This one, I think this is a Love Diaz film from Buddies before, but I haven't seen it. I want to see it. The Return from Zhuang Kinsev. I didn't expect this to be here, but I'm really glad that it is here because, yeah, it's just one of the best of the 21st century. So haunting, so beautiful, very dark. Yeah. Once Upon a Time in Anatolia. one of Ceylan's best films, if not his best film. Absolute masterpiece. So glad to see it here. Through a Glass Darkly. This is the first part of the Fate trilogy. Only my second favorite in the trilogy. Like I said, Winterlight is my favorite one. Mustang, I haven't seen yet. Charulata is one of Sajjadit Rice best films, so I'm glad to see it here. Dini Belungen is such an epic masterpiece from Fritz Lang, so obviously glad to see it here. Afterlife, one of Korea's most famous films, and yeah, absolutely love it. Children of Heaven, this is a big blind spot of mine. I haven't seen it. This one I haven't seen either. Pretty Village, Pretty Flame. Yeah. The Holy Mountain from Jodorowsky, a very famous movie. Yeah, quite difficult movie, but yeah, I love it a lot. The Virgin Spring from Ingmar Bergman, one of his best films and maybe slightly underrated sometimes, but I mean it's on this list, so maybe it's not underrated. The Emperors of Cherbourg, possibly my favorite film of all time, so obviously I want to have it here. Fitzcarraldo is definitely one of Herzog's best films. Is this the first Herzog film? You would expect Aguirre, The Wrath of God, to be here at least, but yeah, good that there is at least some Herzog here. So these are Agnieszka Varda film I haven't seen yet, Jacques Coordinante, so I think this is about like the childhood of Jacques Demy. The Traveling Players from Angelopoulos. I'm a huge fan of Angelopoulos, but this one I definitely struggled with quite a bit, but I need to rewatch it. The Leopard is one of Visconti's best films, it's so good. The Color of Pomegranates is one of the most beautiful films of all time. Yeah, definitely something to watch if you like those kind of non-narrative, aesthetically beautiful films. Intouchables, I used to really love this film. Before I was a cinephile, because back then I really liked these types of sentimental movies, and I think like if I watched it today, I would still probably maybe enjoy it, but I don't think it's a masterpiece anymore. The Story of the Last Chrysanthemum, probably Mizoguchi's best film of the 1930s. So good. Anatomy of a Fall, I know many people love this one, but I haven't seen it yet. The Great Silence is one of the great westerns. I think it's just so good. Yeah, if you love that genre, definitely watch that one. Sanchuro, we already had Yojimbo, and I might actually prefer Sanchuro to Yojimbo. I just think this is a bit more enjoyable. About Ellie, yeah, this is another Asghar Farhadi film. I like this one more than A Separation. Yeah, well, I need to watch more of his films. The Sword of Doom, glad to see it here. It's such a great samurai film. Amarcord, yeah, one of Fellini's funniest films. I actually saw this one in the cinema, and yeah, such a great experience. The Double Life of Veronique might be Kieslowski's best film. It's either this or Three Colors Red to me, but yeah, an absolute masterpiece. And yeah, we actually have Akira the Wrath of God here, so good to see it here. This one I haven't seen yet, The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, but I want to see it. And Murnau's Faust is one of the great silent films, absolute masterpiece. And then the last 10 films. I've been trying to go quite fast because my throat is really dry, and of course I don't want to make this video too long. We have Canal from Andrei Vaida, big blind spot of mine. I really like Ashes and Diamonds. Surprised that's not here, but yeah, I need to watch that one. Camera Path from Kieslowski. Yeah, really good movie. I think it doesn't quite live up to his most famous films, but still good. The Touch of Zen is a great wuxia film. I absolutely love this one. I have enjoyed the couple King Hu films that I have watched, but I need to see more. Kanoa, Shameful Memory is a really good movie. The Great Beauty is a big blind spot of mine. I need to watch it. I think I've heard that it's kind of like La Dolce Vita, so we'll see about that. Elevated to the Gallows. I watched this back when I really struggled with French films, and yeah, so back then I mean I enjoyed it, and the Miles Davis score is of course legendary, but I didn't love it. But I need to rewatch it. Oni Baba is a really good horror film from Japan, although it's not one of my favorite Japanese films. La Ventura is of course a huge masterpiece, and it needs to be here. Cache from Haneke, yeah, I think one of his better films. And Pain and Glory is an Almodovar film that I don't like, or I haven't seen, so I might like it a lot. So who knows? But yeah, I haven't seen it yet. But anyway, that was the list. I think this is actually a very solid list, especially considering that what type of list it is, because usually these kind of a list that are based on like average ratings and stuff, they can be quite underwhelming. But I think this was overall very solid. Of course, some things I would take off and some things I would put here, but yeah, overall I don't have many big complaints about this list. So yeah, very solid. Well, let me know what you think of this list and let me know how many you have seen out of the list. I've seen 213, and this should be up to date as it was updated 11 days ago. So yeah, it's pretty up to date, I think. Yeah. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching. Don't drink Coke at all. Sayonara and arigato gozaimashita.